We have an opportunity to weigh them both in the balance and go beyond which party or color or religion or any of that, team sports type thing, and go, okay, which one of these guys is going to do what he can do to ensure that me, my family, and my children and everything don't end up in an Orwellian nightmare, because it's here, guys. And this is like the office of sheriff is like the last bulkhead door that you can seal before glub glub. You know what I mean?
Beep, 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 beep. Live from Wellston, Georgia, it's the War-Town Times Sheriff Shootout Special 2024. Pew, pew.
Hey everybody, it's your humble author, narrator, and fictional character, Minister Daniel Louis Crumpton. It's July 27th, 2024. This isn't going to be an easy one. Of course, going by the date, we've all on the internet seen the footage of the brutal, cold-blooded murder of Sonya Massey by a sheriff's deputy in Springfield, Illinois. I don't know if this will ever see or get to the family of Sonya Massey, but if so, my condolences and my prayers are with you. I know that when I saw the footage, which was late at night earlier this week, I became physically ill. I know a lot of other people became physically ill. I'm not going to show any of the video because it's extremely triggering. It was extremely triggering for yours truly. I know it's extremely triggering for the melanated community and anyone who suffers from any kind of disorder, such as legal abuse syndrome or anything like that, where things escalate very quickly and unnecessarily. And I mean, at this point, it's kind of obvious that it was intentional, and that is scary. But it's also not a secret anymore. This is why I find it so important for me to be doing these Houston County Sheriff Shootout specials. Because guys, I know here in Wartown, in my community, it can be very, very easy to get galvanized and frozen with freeze or fawn at what's going on in the world and in the nation, because the news just keeps coming. A lot of it is not good. And, for those of you who are beyond party politics and you see through the illusion that any of that actually matters, in the bigger picture, I'm talking to the actual people who can see that the Republican and Democrat game is just that. It's a game to offer the choice of illusion for people who have shit for brains at this point. It's kind of clear to anybody with two brain cells to rub together that don't regurgitate things that they hear from talking points of their team sports side, that there is no amount of reform in our government that is going to come from voting in the general election for who's going to be president. Okay? There's none. That being and if you disagree with me, that's fine. Okay, this isn't for you. I'm not talking to people who are going to vote for the Republican candidate or the Democratic candidate or cult of personality or whatever. This is not for you. Okay, if you're doing that and you're doing the lesser of two evils, just scroll up or skip or whatever. I'm talking to people out there who understand that on a national level, it is falling. It's all collapsing, and it doesn't matter who's going to win the presidential election. No matter what, this country's going to change forever, okay? And I am talking to my community because from my point of view, I don't like to just expose problems. I like to, one of my pet peeves is when people come to me with problems, I go, well, if you bring me a problem, please bring me a solution. So I'm not coming to you guys here in Wartown to do what everyone else on the internet is doing and to report the problems. You guys have the problems reported to you as fast as your thumbs can flick up, just like me. I'm here to try to help out with some solutions where I can and where you people in Wartown can. And I believe, from my point of view, that the highest elected position in our county, which is that of sheriff, is the only one that really matters at this point, as far as I'm concerned, as America moves into that phase that the Roman Empire fell into at its collapse. There's no rescuing the United States Empire. Its empires last about 250 years. We just celebrated 248 years. We're clearly an empire. So it's my opinion that I can't save the nation or the world, and neither can you. However, I can try to minimize the damage that the collapse of the American empire is going to have here. Okay. And I'm not a complete idiot. I'm a pretty smart guy, people think. And I'm telling you that when it all comes crumbling down, the best kind of a framework for something new is going to be this document right here, because it lays out a republic which protects the rights of the individual. Okay. Will there be a time where this has to be updated? Probably. I mean, this kind of came from Magna Carta and some other philosophies from the indigenous peoples, and in my opinion, from the trial of Christ Yeshua. But in my opinion, we want to kind of have the framework of a republic in our minds in the event that the grid collapses, society fails, and this is very feasible things. This isn't far away. I mean, look at what happened in Houston, Texas. Look at what's happening in France as we speak. The possibility of the grid going out and us here in Wartown being in very dire straits is a very real thing, right? And so I don't even actually know if we're going to make it to the elections at this point, anybody who's paying attention to world news. But in the event that we do, it is my opinion that the sheriff's race here is probably the most important race that our area can really make the right decision on, should make the right decision on. And again, even if this were a run of the mill time in American history, it's still a historic election with this sheriff's race, because this county has been under the longest sitting sheriff in American history. And of course, the sheriff kind of sets the tone for all the sheriff's deputies, and they have jurisdiction over your local Warner Robins Police Department. So it's like, the buck stops with the office of the sheriff. And even if we weren't going through the end of the United States Corporation empirical collapse, whatever, even if we weren't going through that, it's still the most important race you guys need to be paying attention to, please. I'm trying to tell you. And the event that happened in Springfield, Illinois with Sonya Massey, and it's not the one bad apple thing, because, like everyone else is repeating, you got to finish that phrase. It's one bad apple ruins the whole bunch. What we all watched from the body cam of Deputy Grayson, who murdered a woman in cold blood, is not an exception to the rule. And we all know that it is systemic. It's not just in Springfield, Illinois. The way that we all watched a sheriff's deputy who had no business being a sheriff's deputy his record is all over the internet. He was fired, came from all kinds of other departments and had a record. And clearly this guy did not know how to de-escalate a situation, specifically de-escalate a situation with a woman who apparently and allegedly was going through some mental trauma or some mental issues that needed to be attended to. There was even some indications that the sheriff's deputy had advanced knowledge that may be the case, and chose to escalate this to murder very, very quickly. And we got to stop and we got to ask ourselves, because, it's back the blue till it happens to you. Anyone who's had to deal with law enforcement in any kind of capacity since 9/11 can tell you the last thing that they are interested in is de-escalating situations. Now, and that is not a good thing in the world that we live in, where we're all going through a mental health crisis. So when you look at that murder of that beautiful melanated woman, and you go, and this isn't even a common, I mean, this or an uncommon thing. We all know, you know, and it had, and I don't do the black and white thing. I don't believe in that. I'm not white, and you know, melanated folks aren't black, and so I don't do that. I like to use accurate terms. Melanated people and more melanated people, I guess you could say. But it's a fact that law enforcement is disproportionately affecting the melanated community and the marginalized and minority communities in a horrific way. And, you know, a lot of people, I guess, who maybe wanted to, especially, you know, with the announcement of Kamala Harris, wanted to utilize the murder of Sonya Massey as, this will cause a race war. You know, I'm so thankful to be able to flip through TikTok and see that trick's not working. You know, it's actually making people who look like me and people who look like Sonya Massey come together and stand up together and speak up together and start to look out for one another together. So it actually is, you know, if there's any silver lining in the murder of Sonya Massey, is that from my point of view, at least in my algorithm, I am seeing that everybody sees this for what it is. Okay. And it's systemic. Okay. It is. You know, here recently, I did the Wartown Times and Zen on the Car. I did the Story of Us. Wartown needs a rebrand, where I kind of went over, you know, my story to you know, this new marketing firm that came in of what Houston County and Wartown is, and I was very, very, you know, honest about it and said, look, nothing for nothing. What this community is basically known for is you know, the policing for profit and probation for profit, and you know, basically just you know, people being indoctrinated in either the Warner Robins Police Department or the Sheriff's Department to harass the people, rather than, you know, and eat up their substance and issue, you know, bills of attainder through slips of paper that are written by an agency or agencies that the Supreme Court just said, oh, by the way, all your horse shit's unconstitutional, right? Anyway, for all of you guys who've been following the Sheriff Shootout special, you know that yours truly and the Wartown Times team sent out a 30-question questionnaire to all the candidates running for sheriff prior to the primaries. And we didn't hear, none of them answered it. So, you know, for the full endeavor of what we're trying to accomplish here, go back and find the playlist on YouTube or Rumble, the Sheriff Shootout special. Start from the beginning. But anyway, so we sent this questionnaire to all the candidates to try to find out, you know, look, moving into this area of American history where who knows what's going to happen next. Kind of like to know, you know, who the highest elected official, what he thinks about this, and other very important questions like what are your thoughts on if the federal government says to do some unconstitutional stuff? What do you tell them? Do you tell them kick rock, or are you going to do what the federal government tells you to do in your county? You know, questions like that, because especially now, it doesn't matter what team sport you're for, Democrat or Republican, you ought to really care about that. You know, one way or the other. You should be like, what would my sheriff do if the feds came down here under Kamala Harris and said to do some messed up crap? Or what, you know, you also need to ask yourself, what would my sheriff do if Trump told the federal government to come down here to Houston County and do something? You probably want to know what your local sheriff would do in the event that happened, one way or the other. But that's just me, man. Anyway, so we sent the questionnaire and we didn't get answers to the questionnaire. However, after the primaries, Arthur Lee Harris, who is clearly got his primary, he did respond. He did answer. He did respond about the questionnaire, and we're hoping to get him on a podcast. And so yours truly and him can actually go through these questions. And we didn't get a response from any of the Republican candidates who were running for sheriff, and we didn't get a response from the ultimate victor of that primary, Matt Moulton. So that being the case, what we wanted to do is one last time, because we are expecting to talk to Arthur Lee Harris about the questionnaire. What we wanted to do was attempt, for our sake and the good people of Wartown who pay attention, and thank you guys in Wartown for spreading this. Our numbers are going up like in a real cool way, and the feedback is excellent. As far as understanding what the hell I'm trying to do here, for your sake and mine. But anyway, so we do expect to get some answers from Arthur Lee Harris, but we haven't heard a response back from Matt Moulton. So we wanted to give him another opportunity to respond or completely ignore us on this questionnaire. So let's share my screen real quick. Anyway, do a screen share here. Man, it's some triggering content whenever you got to take a few minutes while you're recording just to pull yourself together. Anywho, we wanted to give Matt Moulton another opportunity to respond to the 30-question questionnaire that we sent all the candidates for sheriff. We wanted to give him one last opportunity. So we're going to email him this email. And of course, as all of our emails are going to be public, this will be public too. Greetings. First of all, congratulations on winning the Republican nomination for candidate of sheriff in Houston County during the recent primaries. Considering the tough competition within the Republican Party for the nomination, your victory is a testament to the overwhelming support you have behind you. We've attempted to reach you via your campaign contact information online multiple times in regard to your campaign's positions on certain issues within the framework of the Constitution in the form of a brief questionnaire. Unfortunately, we were not able to receive a response or answers to this small 30-item questionnaire prior to the primaries. This is understandable, as no doubt running a campaign with so many contenders is hectic, and surely things slip between the cracks. Therefore, we thought it prudent to allow the election dust to settle before reaching out to you again on this matter, and attempt again to afford you the opportunity of giving the residents of Houston County a better insight and understanding of your positions regarding these constitutional questions and issues. Given the political climate in our nation, it has never been more important for there to be full transparency and cooperation between peace officers and the public to maintain confidence and trust with our elected officials. Attached is the questionnaire, which will give the good people of Houston County a more informed perspective when casting their vote for sheriff in November on where the candidates stand on critical issues which affect us all. With the current political climate in our nation, we appreciate your participation in keeping the public fully informed and engaged in local elections. Additionally, we would appreciate a statement on how a Moulton Sheriff's Office would adjust in light of the Chevron deference being overturned by the Supreme Court recently. Lastly, in the event you would like to be a guest on the Wartown Times to discuss your campaign, the questionnaire, Chevron, or any other issues you would like to address with your candidacy, we would be glad to have you on to speak directly with our audience. Simply let us know and we can work out an amenable time. Sincerely, Minister Daniel Louis Crumpton. And of course, I have attached the 30-question questionnaire, the constitutional questionnaire that was sent out to all of the sheriff's candidates. And so far, Arthur Lee Harris is willing to discuss them. And so we wanted to send that back to Matt Moulton's campaign at team at mattmoulton4sheriff.com. We're also going to be sending it in a message to make sure he gets it, as he got our last one, or somebody in his team got our last one, as you can see right there. So we're going to copy and paste that to make sure, he sees it, because we really would like an answer for the questionnaire. Now, let's see. If you want to go back to the questionnaire, okay, and we can go back to the questionnaire and just take a look at it. And this, again, was sent to all the candidates the prior to the primaries. So it's greetings. I'm Minister Daniel Louis Crumpton, author of Then Came the Flood, Westboro Press 2012, contributor for the Wartown Times, wartowntimes.com, zenandthecar.com, as well as a caregiver for the lawful nationwide medical cannabis collective, Cannasense Total Wellness, cannasense.com/georgiacannasense.com. I'm a resident of Houston County and have been an activist in the community since 2008, emphasizing the importance of the Constitution and government's role within its clear verbiage. I'm sending each candidate for sheriff the following questionnaire to determine who is the best candidate for said office would be, as well as share each candidate's responses with my audience within and without the community, so the voters can be fully informed and confident their next sheriff has every honorable intention to obey the oath of office they might take in the near future. Thank you for your time and willingness for transparency. My audience and I look forward to receiving your responses as they will be published publicly on multiple outlets. Questions on the supremacy of the Constitution. How do you view the Constitution's limitations on federal power in the context of being a peace officer, especially concerning the 10th Amendment? 2. What is your interpretation of the Second Amendment, and how would you ensure that residents' rights to keep and bear arms are protected within your jurisdiction? 3. How would you guarantee that your department respects individuals' Fourth Amendment rights, particularly concerning searches and seizures? 4. Given the advancement in technology, how would you safeguard residents' privacy rights as outlined in the Constitution, particularly against unwarranted surveillance or data collection? 5. How do you plan to uphold the principles of due process and fair trials as outlined in the Fifth and Sixth Amendments within your peace officer practices? 6. What measures would you take to ensure that freedom of speech, assembly, and the right to protest are upheld and protected in your jurisdiction in line with the First Amendment? 7. How would you handle situations where federal law conflicts with state law, particularly regarding matters like immigration or drug enforcement, while still respecting constitutional boundaries? 8. Concerning the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause, how do you plan to prevent racial or ethnic profiling within your department? 9. Can you provide examples of how you've defended civil liberties and fundamental rights during your career as a peace officer? 10. How would you respond to requests from other agencies or entities to compromise individuals' rights in the name of national security or public safety, considering the Constitution's emphasis on individual liberty? All of these are very pertinent questions, especially after Sonya Massey's murder, I believe. So the second part, questions on privatization of policing. And of course, these are questions that everyone in the melanated communities and marginalized minority communities really want to know the answers to, because they suffer from this and have suffered from this for a long time. So we would like the sheriff's candidates to answer these questions on privatization of policing. 1. How do you plan to phase out the involvement of private companies in providing peacekeeping services within your jurisdiction? 2. What steps will you take to end the use of privately operated prisons and bring all correctional facilities under public control? 3. Can you outline your strategy for transitioning probation services from private companies to public agencies, ensuring accountability and fairness in the process? 4. How will you work to eliminate any conflicts of interest that may arise from the financial incentives of private probation companies? 5. What specific policies will you implement to ensure that individuals under probation are not subjected to unfair fees or penalties imposed by private companies? 6. How do you intend to protect the rights and dignity of individuals supervised by private probation companies during the transition to public probation services? 7. What measures will you put in place to assess the performance and effectiveness of public peacekeeping and correction services with the aim of replacing privatized alternatives? 8. Can you provide examples of guidelines or criteria you will use to determine when it's appropriate to bring services back under public control? 9. How will you address concerns about the costs and accountability associated with privatized peacekeeping, prisons, and probation, and ensure that public alternatives are more efficient and transparent? 10. Are there specific functions or aspects of peacekeeping and corrections that you believe should never be privatized? If so, how will you ensure they remain under public control? So I think those are all relevant questions for a sheriff's candidate to have answers for. Now, moving on to the third part, questions on the rights of medical cannabis patients. Now, you guys down here in the South, with whatever your biases are towards plant medicine such as cannabis, I cannot stress to you enough how much that plant alleviates the suffering that millions of Americans go through every day with things like I have been diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, cancer. People such as Sonya Massey could have benefited from medical cannabis with any kind of ailments or emotional distresses that she was having. So, the more and more we're talking here in our community about mental health and the rights of mental health patients and things like that, this is a very serious question, because we all know that cannabis has been used by law enforcement around these parts to put people in cages like animals for profit. It's a fact. The county structure has vested interest monetarily to put people who utilize, either for their First Amendment or medicinally or recreationally, a plant. This county structure monetarily gains from persecuting people who have a right to utilize it. And so these are some very, 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 very important questions that we all need to be asking, especially those of us with ailments that can be treated with medical cannabis. We all need to be asking these questions of whoever we're going to be voting for sheriff. 1, how do you plan to protect the rights of medical cannabis patients in your jurisdiction, ensuring they have safe and legal access to their medication? 2, what steps will you take to ensure that medical cannabis patients are not discriminated against in employment, housing, or other areas due to their lawful use of cannabis for medical purposes? 3, can you outline your approach to educating peace officers and other officials about the rights of medical cannabis patients and the laws governing their use of cannabis? 4, how will you address any barriers or challenges faced by medical cannabis patients in obtaining their medication, such as limited access to dispensaries or high costs? Which, by the way, I have a solution. 5, what measures will you implement to prevent the harassment or profiling of medical cannabis patients by peace officers or other authorities? 6, how do you plan to engage with medical cannabis patients and advocacy groups to ensure their voices are heard and their concerns are addressed in policy-making decisions? 7, can you provide examples of policies or initiatives you will support to expand the availability of medical cannabis and improve patient access to different forms and strains of cannabis? 8, what steps will you take to protect medical cannabis patients' privacy and confidentiality, particularly in situations where their status as patients may be disclosed? 9, how will you ensure that medical cannabis patients have access to alternative forms of medication and treatment if they choose to use cannabis as a part of their healthcare regimen? 10, are there specific measures or protections you believe are necessary to safeguard the rights of medical cannabis patients? And if so, how will you prioritize their implementation in your jurisdiction? Again, thank you for your time and willingness to serve our community within the confines of the Constitution. I look forward to your responses. Sincerely, Minister Daniel Louis Crumpton. So, again, we're going to email that questionnaire to Matt Moulton, and see if he either doesn't respond or responds or ignores us or whatever, because it's not just me that he would be giving a response to. It's going to be the audience, one way or the other. And these are very important questions, especially in light of the whole wide world coming to the same conclusion, except for a very fringe group that policing and the sheriff's department across this nation have been hijacked with a mentality that comes from a federal level ever since 9/11 to be militaristic and to escalate rather than de-escalate. Okay. We all know it, and we don't want it to kind of continue, especially in our community of Wartown or Houston County. Now, I think those are important questions. I think that they could be answered, and most people who have read this questionnaire, which is a lot of people in Wartown, they told me they agreed with me about it should take somebody about 30 minutes to answer these questions. That being the case, there is another initiative that yours truly and the Wartown Times is going to be putting out, and I'll go ahead and give you guys a sneak peek before I do, because I don't know exactly who or how many people, but I did have Archer the Space Noodle beat out a Wartown Times mission statement for peacekeeping reform. And I don't know when I'm going to be submitting this to your local government. That means to Madam Mayor LaRhonda Patrick here, the entirety of City Council, Chief Wayne Fisher of the Warner Robins Police Department, and the Houston County Sheriff's Office. I'm going to be doing like I did with the questionnaire, mass emailing and CC and everybody, so that this kind of gets out there in the thought paradigm of residents. And I think, again, it is appropriate for across the country, every community on a local level, like justice for Sonya Massey and justice for everyone who has come under the boot of violent people behind a badge who had no business being there. Justice for all of them. And may those like Deputy Grayson get what's coming to them. But justice is trying, in my opinion, trying to make sure that this doesn't happen anymore, or to try to mitigate instances where people like Sonya Massey can get murdered. I think that the best way for us to get justice for victims like this and communities who are suffering more and more every day, if we can get justice, then I think that we have to try on a local level. We have to focus on our neighborhoods. We have to focus on our local police department. We have to focus on our local sheriff's department. And so you guys can run with this. You are free to take this and tweak this and add whatever you want to this, but it's a mission statement that we kind of contemplated could be feasible here in Wartown and Houston County moving forward. We'll go through it. I don't think there should be any objections to anybody behind the badge to anything in this mission statement. So we're going to publicly propose it to all parties who should be, and put it out there for all you guys to get your thoughts on any additions or retractions, or if you just think it's a waste of time and we should just all let everything burn. But anyway, I get it. I get it if you think that, or if you're of that persuasion, because America, man, and the world, man, it's a thing. But anyway, so, after the Sonya Massey murder and processing that, which I don't even really know if you can process that at this point, we put this together. We're going to be putting it out there to those who are listed here. So let me go ahead and read it to you guys. Mission statement for peacekeeping reform proposed by the public, which if you are in Wartown or Houston County, you're the public. You feel free to jump in on this. Proposed by the public to Madam Mayor LaRhonda Patrick, City Council, Chief Wayne Fisher, and the Houston County Sheriff's Office. Objective: to enhance public trust, accountability, and the effectiveness of peacekeeping in Warner Robins, ensuring that all officers uphold the highest standards of integrity, knowledge, and transparency in their service to the community. Commitment to transparency. 1. A live streaming mandate. We propose that all officers be required to wear body cameras and live stream their interactions with the public during active duty. Live stream footage should be securely stored and made accessible for public review in compliance with privacy laws and regulations. Regular audits of the body camera footage should be conducted to ensure compliance and address any misconduct promptly. We have the technology for that. Okay, and if we're going to be spending all of this money for flock cameras and a surveillance state in Wartown, surely live streaming, mandating a live streaming functionality with all of our peace officers should be walk in the park. Anyway, commitment to competency. 2, IQ and aptitude assessments, right? Because quality over quantity. Town. We propose that all current and prospective officers undergo standardized IQ and aptitude tests. Applicants for the Sheriff's Office and Warner Robins Police Department should be required to score a minimum IQ of 115 to be considered for hiring, which I think is a little higher than what the federal government wants local police officers' IQ to be. But that's just what we're proposing here within our community. Right? 115 is minimum for anybody with a gun and a badge and weapons and a tank. Right? They should have an IQ minimum of 115 to drive a tank. Anyway, these assessments will help ensure that officers possess the critical thinking and problem-solving skills necessary for effective and fair peacekeeping. Results should be used to identify areas for professional development and continuous improvement. Constitutional knowledge. Officers should be required to pass rigorous tests on the United States Constitution and relevant state laws. Continuous education on constitutional rights and civil liberties should be mandated, with regular refresher courses to maintain a high level of awareness and understanding. Training programs should be designed to integrate constitutional knowledge into daily peacekeeping practices, emphasizing the protection of individual rights and freedoms. Commitment to reducing civil rights infringements. 4, traffic stops reform. Right? We can do this in our community, right? Right? I believe in us. To reduce the potential for civil rights infringements, we propose that traffic stops be limited to those that fall under commercial code violations. More on that later. Non-commercial traffic stops should be minimized, focusing on safety and community well-being rather than punitive measures and monetary measures. Officers should receive training on identifying and appropriately handling commercial code violations to ensure consistency and fairness in enforcement. Implementation and oversight. 5, independent review board. Right? We all want this. And I mean, this is good stuff for Wartown. We propose the establishment of an independent civilian review board to oversee the implementation of these reforms. The board should consist of community leaders, legal experts, and representatives from diverse backgrounds to ensure fair and unbiased oversight. Regular reports on the progress of these initiatives should be presented to the public and city council. Community engagement. Open forums and town hall meetings should be held to gather feedback from the community on the effectiveness of these measures. Peacekeeping agencies should actively seek partnerships with community organizations to foster mutual understanding and collaboration. Programs should be developed to educate the public on their rights and how to engage constructively with peacekeepers. Commitment to excellence. 7, continuous improvement. Ongoing training and developmental programs should be instituted to keep officers updated on best practices in peacekeeping and community relations. Performance metrics should be established to evaluate the impact of these reforms on public safety and community trust. Officers should be encouraged to pursue advanced education and certifications to enhance their skills and knowledge. Conclusion. We, the concerned citizens of Warner Robins, are dedicated to setting a new standard for peacekeeping that prioritizes transparency, competency, and respect for constitutional rights. By adopting these measures, we aim to build a safer, more just, and more connected community for all residents. We invite Madam Mayor LaRhonda Patrick, the City Council, Police Chief Wayne Fisher, and the Houston County Sheriff's Office to support this mission and work with us to achieve these critical goals. Now, I think that these are not this isn't a perfect mission statement, but I think that in light of Sonya Massey's murder in a long line of murders or incidental deaths or unalivings or whatever phrase we're using when people are killed in cold blood and pointlessly, I think that it's a start, right? So, if you guys want a copy of the mission statement for peacekeeping reform, please email us at thewartowntimes@gmail.com or find Daniel Louis Crumpton on Der Booking and message me, and I'll get you a PDF of the mission statement. You're free. You guys are free to run with it. Make up your own if that's what you want to do. So anyway, there you go. There is a mission statement that we're going to be submitting to everybody who can read it, and we'll be sending it to organizations that assist with civil liberties around here, specifically for melanated people and minorities and marginalized communities like the NAACP and Black Voters Matter, and we're going to send it out to organizations like that so they can kind of create an amalgamation of it. Maybe they can get some more traction on it than yours truly But when I found out about the murder of Sonya Massey and unfortunately had to watch the body cam, but I mean, um, I felt like I had to do something, to try to at least prevent this from happening any further in my community. And so that's what we beat out. So you guys are welcome to it. And I mean, I think that it's. I mean, I don't see why anybody would object on either side of the badge to any of those types of things, especially after this. And we do have the technology, and we want peace officers. We don't want guys who are going to be escalating situations and have, no experience in dealing with people who have trauma or challenges. And as a result, losing their life. I do have a lot more to say about the Sonya Massey murder as a minister, but I'm going to hold off on that one. Basically, for this Sheriff Shootout special, I think that this one is a heavy one, and it's relevant because, guys, and I have friends who are in the Democrat Party, friends who are in the Republican Party, and on a one-on-one, they're great, but they have to wave the flag of their team. And I'm telling you guys know that it doesn't matter who becomes president, at this presidential election. It's bad. Both ways, it's bad. And so we got to come together and look at an election and a position that directly and immediately affects us more than you guys may have known prior, but it does. And you've had, like I said, the longest administration in a sheriff's office in American history for 55 years before this election. So we have an opportunity to choose between two gentlemen and put the closest to the intended principles of our republic. We have an opportunity to weigh them both in the balance and go beyond which party or color or religion or any of that, team sports type thing, and go, okay, which one of these guys is going to do what he can do to ensure that me, my family, and my children and everything don't end up in an Orwellian nightmare, because it's here, guys. And this is like the office of sheriff is like the last bulkhead door that you can seal before glub glub, you know what I mean? So anyway, I want to let you guys go with that. If please like, share, subscribe, spread this, especially if you're in Wartown, but not necessarily just Wartown, because what we're trying to do here is you can superimpose it over communities across the nation to try to make a change. You guys really want to focus on your local elections, especially like your constitutional position, such as a sheriff. Okay. I'm going to come back for a Wartown Times special, I guess, to talk about the Chevron deference being overturned, because a lot of you guys don't quite understand the ramifications that it has here in Wartown. But we'll get to, and before I go, listen, we're coming, if you want my humble advice, WAR-TONIANS, and anybody in earshot, if you want to know what I believe we can each do, the smallest that we can each do to try to stop our country from burning to the ground and the the world catching on fire after World War III starts, because we're owned by political action committees. Okay, your congressmen and your senators are all owned by special interest lobbyists. You know that now. You have seen your owner. He spoke to your representatives this week and showed you he owns you and this country. But if you want my opinion on what you can do, all right, because I don't think that they want us, the system wants us to feel like we're all powerless, so we don't do anything and we go into faint or fawn and freeze. Or they want us to go in fight or flight, right? Because then they can escalate. And I'm saying, maybe the best thing that we, the people of Wartown and America, can begin doing collectively is non-compliance, right? Peaceful non-compliance. And that goes to, non-compliance on a civilian level, as well as non-compliance if you're in peace law enforcement. Okay, I prefer to use the term peace officer. But if you're in law enforcement, if you're behind a badge, you can help save America by being non-compliant with unconstitutional orders by your superior officers and speaking up, just being non-compliant, right? Go, no, I'm not going to go and fill a quota by passing out citations when nobody's being hurt and it's just not necessary when everybody is struggling financially. Why would I want to be a pirate on the road with a badge? What peace officer wants to be seen that way? You guys know that if there's no victim, there's no crime, and everything, all this stuff that comes from the Department of Driver Services, which is a privately owned corporation, and Chevron deference being overturned, basically just said all that stuff's unconstitutional, guys. Again, we'll get to that. But you guys behind a badge, you could be peacefully non-compliant. You could bring up your superiors, when you know that orders are just unconstitutional, just go, no, I can't do that, And on the civilian side, being non-compliant with unconstitutional statutes, codes, acts, and ordinances. I mean, we have to do that for ourselves and our progeny, right? Because time is running out, if not out. I've already gone way too long, and this is going to have to be edited. But anyway, I love you guys. Thank you for those of you who see what I'm doing and support what I'm doing here. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to keep doing it, until we get some answers. God damn it. But anyway, until I see you guys on the street, I love you. Stay well.
Zen in the car for the spiritually minded liberty activist on the go. Liketh, shareth, subscribeth. It's what the cool kids do.